Rest of the day goes by without incident. Now we're on our way out.
あらかじめ言っておくと、俺は嘘は言っていない。
Yeah, we're
吸
not
血
going
鬼探しを
alone.
しているが、一人ではないのである。
Night has fallen, and the park is utterly deserted. I swear to God, if Arcueid skips today, of all days, I will be pissed. My muttering addresses to nobody in particular fades away, swallowed by the darkness. There you are.
何か言ったシキ？
いや、別に。アルクエイドには関係のないことだ。気にしないでくれ。
Besides, as far as promises go, the one I made with Arcueid takes priority. I silently apologize to Senpai in my head. I don't like going behind her back, but I don't really have a choice given the circumstances.
よし、吸血鬼探しを始めよう。今夜はどこに行くんだ？
今夜は特に当たりをつけている場所はないわ。街を歩いて死者を見つけるぐらい。あなたの目なら生きている人間と死んでいる人間、一目で判別がつくから。ちょっときついだろうけど、できる？シキ。
Don't really have a choice. Arcueid is asking me to take my glasses off and walk around town. Taking them off makes me feel nauseous, even when there's nobody else around. The strain of navigating the crowds in the city center without them is probably going to be a hell of a lot worse. But if she asks me whether I'm up for it with that look on her face, how can I say no?
もちろん。協力するって、そういうことだろ。
ええ、頼りにしてるわ、パートナーさん。ああ、でも本当に辛くなったらすぐに休んでね。あなたの目は特別だから、大切に扱わないと。
Sure. With Arcueid leading the charge, we set off into the night. As soon as I commit myself to taking off my glasses, I feel a strange sense of enthusiasm well up inside of me. We'll start with the shopping district and go from there. I have to root out and dismember as many vampires as I can. Alas, despite my eagerness, I end up with nothing to show for it. We went to the shopping district first, and from there we hit up the back alleys, the business district, and even the site of an old factory, but in the end we did manage to find even a trace of the dead. Now that Roa, their sire, has been defeated, they're probably all on high alert. They've holed themselves up in their chambers, wherever those may be, in fear of Arcueid. That means neither of us will be able to find them. However, they can't hide forever. If they don't eat, they'll revert to being ordinary corpses. To live is to take risks. That applies to all of us. What will come first? Will they show themselves, or will we let our guard down? This battlefield of endurance will probably drag on for a while. It's anticlimactic, but I'll take that over more casualties. And above all, I'm genuinely happy that I get to spend more time patrolling the city with Arcueid.
今夜は完全に無駄惚れだったな。緊張して損した。
I take a seat on the bench, giving my lingering headache a chance to subside. With each breath of the cool nighttime air, it feels like the poison that's built up in my brain freezes over a little more. Thanks to that, my dizziness and nausea are receding, albeit slowly.
そうね。でも私は楽しかったわ。シキは相変わらず文句ばっかりだったけど、無駄なことがこんなに面白いなんて知らなかった。その点は空気を読んだ人たちに感謝ね。お礼に、出会った時は容赦なく粉々にしてあげる。
That's reassuring. Despite her menacing words, Arcueid is in a good mood. As I sit here on the bench, she's prancing around in circles in front of me. What's she doing? She's like a child that's just been allowed outside for the first time in their life. Or a long captive prisoner celebrating their newfound freedom. That's the impression I get at least.
まあ、元気なことはいいことだけど。
Despite my snide comments, my eyes are riveted to Arcueid. I've got to admit, if what I feel for Senpai is deep affection, then what I feel for Arcueid approaches love. I'm just as taken with Arcueid as I am with Senpai. I initially thought I was only feeling guilty about the fact that I killed her, but that excuse has started to sound pretty hollow. I recognize how foolish I am. I want to help Senpai, but at the same time, I'm yearning for a vampire, for her enemy. I must be crazy. Thinking rationally, I know that I should keep my distance from her, but on an instinctual level, I've been completely bewitched by the beauty of this woman in white. Even though it drove me mad with lust once before, and resulted in me committing such a cruel and gruesome act. I shake my head and chase away those images. My nausea's back, but at least it's helped calm me down. It's reminded me that I don't deserve to spend time with Arcueid like this.
アルクエド、元気そうだけど体の調子はどうなんだ？お前、昨日くしゃみしていただろ。風邪とかひいてないか？
風邪？免疫機能の低下による発熱のこと？そんなのひいてないよ。ねえ、どうしてそんなことを聞くの？もしかして私のことを心配してくれてる？
Arcueid stops in front of the bench, leans over, and peers into my face.
別にそんなんじゃない。俺がやっちまった傷がちゃんと治ってるのか気になっただけだ。
Her proximity and feminine sin are almost enough to send me over the edge. I look away to try and hide my true feelings.
式につけられた傷はそう簡単には完治しないわ。昨日のはそれとは別。多分身体機能を変えていたからじゃない？戦う時以外はあなたに合わせて人間寄りにしているから。は
あ？
I see.
人間寄りってなんで？
さあ、なんででしょう。
Laughing, Arcueid skips away from me again. She's like a dancing, fluttering butterfly.
風邪のはずがないんだよな。吸血鬼は風邪をひかないって先輩も言ってたし。
Senpai, who's that? Yeah. I feel like there's something dangerous about her going to such pointless lengths to become more human, but if she's recovering well, then I'll just let it lie. Relieved, I look up and...
先輩ってあの女のこと？
So close. Arcueid's scowling face is right in front of me, even closer than it was earlier.
なんだよいきなり。あの女って誰さ？
とぼけないで。あの女はあの女よ。ブローブと戦っていたあいつ。やっぱり昼間はあいつにまとわりつかれてるのね。
いや、そんなことは。
I don't dare admit that I'm the one who spent the whole day trailing after her.
まあ、吸血鬼のことを教えてくれたのは先輩だけど。いいじゃないか。先輩もお前もやってることは同じなんだから。ロアは倒したんだし、もう敵対する理由はないんだろ。
理由はなくても相入れないの、私たちは。いい？神祖であろうと使徒であろうと、吸血鬼にとって代行者は敵なの。前にも話したでしょ？あいつらがどれだけ陰湿な奴らかって。もう忘れちゃったの？シキのバカ！
覚えてる。ちゃんと覚えてます。
She explained this before back at the hotel. They're a group created for the sole purpose of exterminating vampires. Heresy hunters who execute the Lord's teachings in his name. That is Senpai's true identity, an executor of the church. Apparently, the main reason that apostles act covertly is because they're terrified of being discovered by them.
吸血鬼の天敵だろ？夜の巡回だってもともとは先輩の仕事なんだろうし。となるとお前はなんだ？吸血鬼界の裏切り者か？
それを言うなら、私は吸血鬼にとっての天罰よ。まあいいわ。代行者なんて虫みたいなものだし、連中がどんなに出てきても関係ない。でもあいつだけは別。
If the rest of them are cockroaches, then Ciel is probably a fucking, I don't know, a rhinoceros beetle, I guess? I don't know, some type of dangerous insect. Wasp, I guess? Arcueid is seriously annoyed. It's like she doesn't even want to say Ciel's name. What a mess. I knew they didn't get along, but I had no idea it was this bad.
それで、あなたはどうなの、シキ？あいつをどう思っているのかってこと。私、シキのことは何だっていいんだけど、あいつだけはダメ。あなたの気持ちがあいつに向くだけで許せない。
What's that got to do with you? Arcueid's red eyes begin to shimmer. Whoa, slow down a second. She's seriously out for blood right now.
許せないってなんだよ。先輩は俺の学校の先輩だ。いつも世話になってるし、ブローブの時だって助けてくれた。アルクエイドだって先輩と一度話せば仲良く。
絶対にならない。私はあいつが嫌いだし、あいつも私を殺したがってるし。シキは騙されているだけよ。埋葬機関の人間はみんな好戦的で、隙あらば襲いかかってくるんだから。だいたいあなたは初めからあいつの正体を知っていたの？どうせいつも通り一般人のふりをしてあなたをからかっていたんじゃない？
That's... I can't deny that Senpai hid her true identity. But she had no other choice. To protect people from vampires, she has to keep their very existence a secret. Since her prey hides by pretending to be human, she can't reveal her presence without risking tipping them off. Besides, even knowing who Ciel Senpai really is, I still think of her as my upperclassman. I enjoyed having lunch with her, shooting the breeze with her in Arihiko, and passing the time in the tea ceremony room together. In fact, I had so much fun that I almost wish I'd never found out about Senpai's true identity.
そう。シキ。あなた、あの女と私、どっちの味方？
Her question drips with hostility and reproach. I guess Ciel Senpai is Arcueid's sworn enemy. That's why she's looking at me with those narrowed eyes. Because the moment I take her enemy's side, I will also become her enemy.
そんなことは絶対にないと思うけど、あの女に関わるのはやめて。万が一にも仲良くなんてなってたら殺すから。
How direct. I'm at a loss for words. As far as I'm concerned, you're the one I can't get out of my mind. Senpai is precious to me. Oh shit, okay. Okay. What do we do? What do we do? You know, there's this burning thought in the back of my mind that because we're on Ciel route, it would only be a matter of time before we consider Arcueid an enemy. Simply because of just the route, you know, Ciel, executor of the church, all that. I feel like there would always be a point, inevitably, where we'd consider Arcueid an enemy, even after our alliance and all that. So do we just rip off the band-aid right now? Or do we just wait it out? Because I feel like despite the decision, like I feel like it's going to get to that point, so what's the point of stalling it, you know? Unless she's just gonna kill us right here and now. If we pick this. What a conundrum. I feel like my gut is going to just Senpai is precious to me because of the inevitability of the route we're in. And yeah, I think I'm just gonna go with that. I mean, we saved, so if worst comes to worst, we have that to back us up, but Honestly, why keep the band-aid on for so long, you know? Even faced with this ultimatum, I don't want to think of Senpai as an enemy.
先輩は大切な人だ。味方とか敵とかそういう割り振りはできない。
何よ、それじゃあ私はどういう割り振りなの？
お前は放っておけないやつっていうか。
She's gonna take offense to that, isn't she? Fumbling to put how I feel into words, I scratch at my cheek. I mean, just having arcueid with me at night was enough to make the pain in my eyes bearable. For some reason, I feel like I'm allowed to be myself when I'm with her. I can actually relax. Though right now, I might be a little too relaxed. I have to actively stop myself from embracing her. In short, what I feel is similar to the lust you'd feel toward your lover.
あ、いや、それは。
I'm in trouble now. Deep trouble. I can't believe she'd fight dirty like this. I'm only wavering because Arcueid's captivatingly beautiful figure is in front of my eyes right now, I swear.
ああ、もういいだろ。なんだってそんなことを聞くんだ、お前は。
そんなの私にわかるわけないでしょ。もういい、私帰る。また明日ね、シキ。
When I snap at her, she only snaps back even more irrationally.
帰るっていきなりか。というか、明日もここで待ち合わせでいいんだな。
当たり前です。もし破ったらシキの家に押しかけてやるから。
And off she goes. With that menacing parting shot, Arcueid briskly leaps away.
ったく、何なんだよ、一体。
If she wants to get mad at me, that's fine. If she wants to make a promise with me, that's fine. But she can't do both at once.
でも、今ので怒るってことは、あいつ。
I think it's safe to say that she cares about me in her own weird way. If a friend of mine hit it off with someone I couldn't stand, I'd be pretty mad about it too.
あいつ、人間なんてどうでもいいって言ってたのに。
She isn't acting like a vampire at all. Though it's not like I have any idea how vampires' mind work to begin with.
帰るか。そろそろ0時だしな。
I let out a sigh and leave the park. I still got some energy left, but my footsteps feel strangely heavy. Whoa. The raised mass of steel is swung down without a shred of hesitation. A beaten-up relic of a weapon that has been worn down by years of use that it'd be impossible to sharpen again, no matter how much one tried to wet it. At the tip of this weapon is a wide blade, over 50 centimeters from edge to edge. That blade, which weighs an entire ton, is propelled by nothing but its own weight. Crunch, its bone-crushing force is a sight to behold. With all that weight behind it, the dull blade turns the skulls of its scampering prey to mincemeat.
何？
Anyone would be incredulous after witnessing something like that with their own eyes. What is happening? What just happened? They still haven't been able to grasp the answer to either of those questions. This place is supposed to be safe, after all. Their lives shouldn't be in peril here. The city has become far too dangerous for vampires. They're caught between the Princess of the True Ancestors on one side and the Executors on the other. As their executioners close in, their chances of escape dwindle by the second. They'd all made a deal that they'd be allowed to escape to a new land, so long as they upheld their side of the bargain, and had grown complacent as a result.
あれ？みんな反応悪いんじゃない？ここはクモの子みたいに逃げ回るところでしょ？
Holding her weapon in one hand, the woman in the habit cocks her head to the side. She's surrounded by a crowd of 13 people. each and every one of them a pathetic fugitive vampire, who have gathered here because they believed the nun's words.
14人もいるから広い場所にしてあげたのに、これじゃあちょっと拍子抜けかな。
Grumbling, the nun shakes her head in disappointment. Still, this is a pretty good turnout for a hoax she cobbled together on the fly. Something like this would have worked back where she came from. She'd have been looking to get 2 or 3 of them at most, even if she spent an entire month carefully laying the bait. Instead, she managed to net 14 of them. It isn't just the urban fabric that's simple here, but the people themselves. She can't help but laugh.
おっと、今1匹潰れたからあと13匹よね。弦が悪いからもう1匹潰しておこっか。
Her 2-meter-long weapon swings through the air. In the blink of an eye, the halberd comes crashing down on the head of a young man who didn't move out of the way in time. His skull splits with the same hollow thunk that smashing a rotten pumpkin would make. A human shriek rings out. For the most part, the men and women gathered here are in their early 20s. The screaming ripples outward, starting with those who were closest to their now blood-stained comrade, who they'd never even met before tonight. Gazing with satisfaction at the scene, the nun slowly walks forward.
あらあら、危機感のないいい子ちゃんばかりなのに、こういう時の反応はどこの国でも一緒なのね。真夜中の台所に集まったネズミみたい。電気がついた途端、我先にと逃げ出すんだけど、ほらかわいそう。こんな風にネズミ捕りに捕まってあっさり踏み潰されちゃうの。
Jesus. She over here like Michael Myers or some shit.
Here's
ノエル。
A third spurt of blood spatters the night. The lump of iron sets its sight on a nearby young man and plummets toward his head. This time, it swung with much greater force. His skull is smashed to smithereens, but the bleed keeps going, plowing through his neck and finally coming to rest in the middle of his torso.
はーい、注目。これからお姉さんが害獣駆除をするわけだけど、変な勘違いされるとイラッとくるので、あらかじめ説明しておきますね。まずはこの大部屋、結界を張ったのであなたたちは絶対に逃げられません。窓から出ると溶けるから注意してね。次に私、何があろうと一匹も見逃さないので、私に命乞いをしても意味はありません。最後にあなたたち、助けを呼ぶ自由だけはあるので、助かりたかったら私にではなく神様にお祈りしてください。本当に神様がいて、あなたたちにそれだけの価値があるのなら、奇跡が起きて逃げられるよう世界は作られているはずです。
With a heave, the blood-smeared nun dislodges her halberd from the pile of flesh. At this, the panic of the assembled youths reaches a fever pitch. They scramble in all directions trying to escape the nun, but their legs are unsteady. An anti-vampire barrier has already been erected here. It wouldn't have any effect on a real human, but for a low-ranking dead apostle, it feels like being stuck at the bottom of the ocean. Unable to even run away, their bodies continue to weaken by the second.
なんで指定額は用意しただろう。なんで逆に殺されるんだよ。
やめて、頭はやめて、足もやめてよ。
I have a very weird suspicion that these aren't vampires and are actually human, because of just how they're talking. These aren't how the dead normally act, right? I don't think I've ever heard a dead talk like that.
なんでこんなに痛いの。嘘、やめて。そこから引っ張られたら魚みたいに真っ二つになっちゃう。
嘘ですよね、先生。助けてくれるって、僕だけは助けてくれるって言ったじゃないですか。
いい子にしてれば
Sensei?
見逃してくれるって。
Is that one of her students? The smile hasn't faded from her face. Sticky red threads cling to her halberd as she hoists it aloft again, then brings it crashing down on the skull of her next target. Her breathing is frenzied. The scream wrung from the victim of her blow seems to have driven her wild with excitement.
早くドア開けなさいよ。殺されるじゃない。もうクズがもたもたしてんじゃねえよ。あんな女外にさえ出れば簡単によ。無理です。ドアに触れと指が溶けて、肘まで崩れちゃう。私溶けちゃってます。
やめて、助けて神様、助けて。
Jesus.
祈ってたのに、ちゃんと神様に手を合わせて祈ってたじゃねえか。この人殺し、てめえのどこが失踪だ。
The nun with bloodshot eyes, who was just about to slice open the youth's defenseless back and rip out their still dripping spine, suddenly stops.
君、今妙なこと口走らなかった？人殺しって何？あんたたちみたいな害獣を殺すことが人殺し？今まで散々人間を食い物にしてきたくせに自分のことを人間と思ってたの？
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. What the fuck? This is graphic. Good god. His screams reverberate throughout the entire room. The 5 vampires that remain can do nothing but cower and watch the show unfolding before them. The nun releases her grip on the spear and begins to meticulously and ruthlessly execute her downed prey. First, she uses a sacrament to restore his sense of pain. That done, she pins his eyelids in place with nails so that he cannot look away. She then removes his clothes, and once he's fully naked, starts to peel back his skin, exposing his innards. Do you really have to do this much to do your job? God damn. One by one, she gouges out his organs with a black key. Of course, each strike inflicts a lethal dose of pain. Once she's done with his organs, she rips off his nose and ears. When her prey sees what he's become, he begs her to just kill him. Finally, she punctures a hole in his skull and fills it with holy water. To vampires, holy water is like sulfuric acid. The brain shouldn't have a sense of pain, but this liquid, which has been purified by a baptism, envelops her prey with an unimaginable agony and drives him insane. The product is a broken record, capable only of repeating the words "kill me, kill me, kill me." She lets out a sigh that makes the devil himself tremble. The nun hefts her spear once more, and with a heave-ho, obliterates the broken record.
失敗。あんまりにも面白いこと言われたから趣味に走っちゃった。
I don't remember her being this violent in Multi-Blood, or unless I'm just remembering wrong.
安心してみんな。今ので満足しちゃったし、あなたたちは適当で済ませるから。手抜き作業でごめんなさいね。
The nun sweetly flashes them with a flirtatious smile. This is the final straw. The remaining prey starts shrieking and punching and kicking the walls, even as the barrier begins to melt their hands and feet. They scream with every fiber of their beings, begging to be released.
やだ。お願い、殺さないでください。神様。 お願いします。何でもします。どうか。帰る。こ
今度こそちゃんとお家に帰るから助けてよお母さん。お母さん、お母さん、お母さん。待ってよ、私はまだ誰も食べてない。昨日こいつらに襲われてまだ吸血鬼にもなってないのに、まだ一つもいい目に遭ってないのに。
She don't give a fuck. One rodent left. The nun takes a moment to rest, no doubt exhausted by her hard work. The lone survivor takes this opportunity to address a question to her defenseless figure.
なあ、なんで俺たちだったんだ。
はい。
俺たちはただの雑兵だ。放っておいてもあと数日で餓死していた底辺の怪物だった。あんたみたいな掃除屋がわざわざ手を出す必要のないクズだ。なのにどうしてこんな。助けてやるなんて希望を持たせて殺しやがった。一人一人丁寧に散々怖がらせてさ、対向車ってのはもっと効率的で小物だけを狙うんじゃなかったのか。それでもお前は人間かよ。
The nun is taken aback by the vermin's unexpected outburst. She's legitimately surprised. Is it because her prey has, in its final moments, demonstrated an almost human nobility? No.
あのね、弱い者が弱い者を襲うのは当たり前のことじゃないの。
She's surprised because he asked her something that would be obvious to any human.
自分より強い相手なんかと戦うわけがないでしょ。私は弱いから自分より弱い奴にしか手を出さない。これ人間社会じゃなくて生き物の一般常識よ。
じゃあお前が俺たちを集めたのは吸血鬼だからじゃなく。
そう、都合よくストレスをぶつけられる相手が欲しかっただけよ。そんなの見てわかりなさいよ。ああ、最悪。あなたたちって脳まで腐ってるのね。もしかしてクリームでも詰まってる？詰まってたのよね。そんな甘ったるい考えだから神様は助けてくれなかったのよ。
So maybe I was half right about these guys being human? Maybe? The final blow comes hurtling down. The nun's halberd decapitates her prey in the blink of an eye, ending his life before the pain could even register. That is horrifying. Holy shit. The nun cleans up the remains, leaving no trace of the 14 bodies that had been strewn across the room, and heads outside. She tosses her blood-soaked halberd to the floor with a dejected look on her face, her excitement from earlier nowhere to be found. With lifeless eyes, she lets out a long, slow sigh. It was an incredibly melancholy sigh, almost like her soul was leaving her body.
雑魚どもをまとめて処理か。さすが下っ端。ドブさらいだけは慣れてるじゃねえか。
Hello, Mario. Hearing someone call out to her from behind, the nun hurriedly picks her halberd back up. Though she excels in dealing with enemies weaker than her, she stands no chance against anyone as strong as, or stronger than, herself. She can't help but imagine the worst scenario, and because of this personality trait she always puts herself down, preventing her from achieving her true potential. That's more or less exactly what's happening now. She hasn't even seen them yet, but the mere thought of someone she doesn't know suddenly getting involved is enough to wreck her confidence.
ああ、あんだけの殺しをやっておいて何ブルってやがる。落ち着けよメス豚。てめえにとっちゃ神に等しい上司様だっつの。マ
リオ、司祭代行。
The nun's shoulders slump in relief, and she lowers her halberd. She doesn't relax just yet, though. She understands that she's still in a precarious situation.
これは正当な討伐です。ロアをいぶり出すにはまず血液を集める兵隊を根絶する必要が。
知ってるよ。いちいち弁明すんな。初めっから見てたからな。スコアを報告しなくてもいい。だがまあ ちょいとやりすぎだな。
Straight up.
使徒どもに懺悔の機会なんぞを与えやがったのは見なかったことにする。代行者の殺し方はそれぞれだからな。
Dang, even you
問
call
題
it
は
murder.
死体の数だ。中にはまだなりきれてない犠牲者もいたように見えたがね。
いいえ、
Thought
あれ
so.
は吸血鬼より始末が悪いものです。あの少女は人間であるにもかかわらず、自分から奴らに協力して犠牲者を増やしていましたから、当然の末路です。
はあ、チキンなてめえにしちゃ冷徹な判断だ。吸血鬼に関わった人間は皆殺しってわけか。そいつは頼もしい。
何のご用でしょうか、司祭代行。定期連絡はしていますし、私の単独行動は許可されているのではないのですか？
ああ、奇跡会と埋葬機関は別管轄だ。てめえがシエルの相棒である以上、俺たちは対等だった。
だったとは、どういうことでしょうか？
代行者シエルはてめえとのコンビを解くとよ。できうる限り早くてめえを引き取れなんて言ってきやがった。
Okay.
なんで近いうちにてめえは俺の預かりだが、スコアも悪い、精神も不安定な不良物件を使うほど間抜けじゃねえ。この一件が終わり次第、てめえは修道院送りだ。今のうちに身辺整理をしておけよ。
The monastery. An institution for those among the faithful who wish to withdraw from the earthly world and live communally under the teachings of the Church. Just as the Vatican constitutes the smallest country on earth, it could be said that each monastery represents an independent world in its own right, sealed off from the rest of society. Nuns who pledge to spend the remainder of their lives inside its walls become members of this self-contained collective. Cut off from the outside world, they live out their days upholding the ideals of purity, obedience, and freedom from material desires, as befits children of the Heavenly Father. For those who knock willingly on the doors of the monastery, it's a worthy life. But for those who do not wish to be sealed away in this cloistered world, being sent to the monastery is akin to torture. Due to her peculiar circumstances, the only path not denied to Noelle is that of an executor. As such, the re-education curriculum she would face at the monastery would be that of an executor. While she'd been able to endure the harsh training once before in her youth, she knows there's no chance she'd be able to do so again as an adult. But more importantly, if she's sent to the monastery, her body will be inspected. For executors, remaining pure doesn't involve refraining from relations with the opposite sex so much as preserving the immaculateness of the human body. Considering her current state, that examination is something that she must avoid at all costs. Huh.
待ってください。私は常に最善を尽くしています。代行者として何の問題もありません。さももなく修道院送りなんて、そんな横暴は許されないはずです。
ああ、てめえみたいな凡人の最善なんて知らねえよ。いいか、ここは通勤時間のある事務職じゃねえ。殺し合いの最前線だ。無能なやつも無能じゃないだけの凡人も等しく足手まといなんだよ。
Damn.
有能なやつにしか居場所のない世界だっていい加減諦めとけ。夢見るねんねじゃあるまいし、今年で何歳だよてめえは。
She bites her tongue before she can make a rebuttal. An intense hatred of a kind she didn't even experience during her cleanup a moment ago wells up in her chest, but she quickly swallows it again. Physically, this brat is weaker than she is. He's just a 12-year-old kid, after all. She could make mincemeat of him with a single swing of her halberd. But he's also incredibly well-connected, enticingly so. As the boy says, if a mediocre person like her wants to rise above the rank and file, she has no choice but to integrate herself with those connections.
ですが、代行者シエルだけには任せておけません。彼女の行動は不審極まります。ロア探索の手を止めているばかりか、私を切り捨てて一人になることに危ういものを感じます。司祭代行も彼女の経歴はご存知でしょ。彼女はキャンズです。なら今拘束すべきは私ではなく、
あの女が吸血鬼もどきってことだろ。嫌っていうほど知ってるから安心しろ。
That's news.
いいんだよ、あの女はあれで。単独で動こうが上の意向に逆らおうが関係ねえ。何があろうとあいつはロアを殺す。そういう風にしか動けない女だからな。
So how does that work? Pseudo-vampire. For someone who's constantly swearing, his tone was surprisingly mature. There was a faint note of resignation in the boy's voice.
いいからてめえは荷物をまとめて待機してやがれ。2日もあれば辞令が届くからな。くだらねえ手間を増やさせるんじゃねえぞ。三下は何も考えず黙ってギーギー回ってればいいんだよ。
Damn. After delivering his final warning, the young boy takes his leave. The blood-stained nun is left alone in the back alley. After checking that the boy is definitely gone, she raises the weapon in her hand high above a discarded steel girder before bringing it crashing down with as much force as she can muster.
何よあの楽器。何なのよ言いたい放題。子供のくせに大人を舐めるんじゃないっての。
The sound doesn't fade away after the first hit. Her curses, punctuated by the crash of metal on metal, echo through the alley a total of 8 times. The girder, which had weathered all sorts of abuse in the past, is now nothing more than a twisted wreck. It wasn't the only one who's gotten bent out of shape. She hitting that thing like Taiga was to that fucking telephone pole in Toradora. Panting heavily, she releases her grip on the halberd. It's only natural she'd be exhausted after flailing it about as hard as she did. She doesn't actually possess the strength necessary to wield it in the first place. She'd never be able to hit anything with it if she didn't activate the sacrament of weight reduction it carries for every swing. But in her emotional frenzy, she swung it without using that sacrament even once. The woman smiles coldly at her own despair. It wouldn't be surprising if she'd shredded her own arm muscles while thrashing around like that.
何やってるのよ私。あの怪物じゃあるまいし、こんなでっかい自分の力だけで振り回せるはずないのに。
Even so, her anger doesn't subside. The situation has changed for the worse. Even though she knows she should cool her head and draw up a new plan, her heart won't stop racing. As if to make a bad situation worse. Or rather, because the situation is so bad. A nightmarish convulsion takes hold of her. She doubles over, trying to withstand the pain coming from inside her. Kneeling on the floor, she claws at the dirty soil with her fingers and tries to cling to her current self. The nausea and chills penetrate deep into the marrow of her bones. She's never experienced it firsthand, but she assumes this is how morning sickness feels. Except the child, gestating in her womb, definitely isn't human. Huh?
早く吸血鬼を殺さないと。私がダメになる前にロアを探し出して殺さないといけないのに。あと2日。あと2日しかないの。
Maybe she doesn't even have that long. The weak-willed part of herself whimpers. She's curled up so tightly that it looks like her back's about to burst. She clamps a filthy hand over her mouth, holding back the thing that threatens to spill from her stomach.
大丈夫。神様は見てくれてる。私はいい子にしてたもの。きっと助けてもらえる。 私は何も悪いことなんかしてない。だから。
I'll kill some more vampires tonight. I'll kill some more vampires tomorrow. If I do that, I'll be saved. I'll definitely be saved. The revenge I've been chasing for 13 long years will finally be complete.
そうよ、ノエル。私は代行者になった。このために強くなった。あんなガキにも、あんな女にも、思い通りになんかさせるもんか。
She forces her cold, trembling body to stand up. A twisted smile plastered across her face. The nun lifts her halberd using nothing but her own brute strength, and leaves the sight of her one-night slaughter behind her. Yeah, there's some stuff about Noelle I want to know. For sure, simply with that one scene. Yeah, there's some stuff about Noelle I want to know. For certain. It's midnight. In the dead end of night, while everyone else is asleep, I tiptoe back to my room. I've already grown accustomed to sneaking out and back again during the night. I change into my pajamas and get into bed. As soon as I do, I'm overcome by a sudden drowsiness. My body isn't all that tired, but I guess my brain needs a break after I went overboard using my mystic eyes. I remove my glasses, place them on the bedside table, and close my eyes.
あれ、何か考え事があった気がするんだけど。
Tonight, I'll surrender myself to sleep. Biting back on the disconcerting feeling of weightlessness that creeps up on me as I fall asleep, I release my hold on all of the thoughts clamoring to keep me awake. Huh, what an interesting chapter.
なんだけど。
Oh, okay, it's not over yet. Okay.
どうなってるんだ。
I kick off the blankets and get out of bed. I assume it's book time. My body's still too restless for some reason. I can't get to sleep. My brain is desperate for rest, but my body won't let it. This is like a mild form of torture. There isn't much else I can do, so I wander over to the conservatory. If I turned on the lights in my room, there's a chance Hisui or Kurohaku-san would notice. The lights in the conservatory, on the other hand, are only visible from outside the mansion. I pluck a book at random off the shelf. Just like the last few nights, I'll lose myself in its pages until I start feeling sleepy. The year was 1989. I was born as the child of a shopkeeper deep in the French countryside. I inherited my mother's Far Eastern features, and so the entire time I was growing up, I never quite felt like I belonged in the town I lived in. Despite this, the townspeople were always cheerful and accepted me with open arms. In order to reciprocate their warmth, I spent my days living positively and honestly. I helped my father, I went to school, and I dreamt of the future. I was also a little worried about how I seemed to be developing faster than the other children. But I never questioned that it was simply the hand I'd been dealt, and assumed that this blessing was something utterly unremarkable. At least, that's how I'd lived these precious short years leading up to my 12th birthday. It came to me suddenly. It would happen when I was playing with my friends. For no particular reason, I'd feel the desire to snap their slender necks. It would happen when I saw a weary-looking beggar by the side of the road. I'd feel the urge to gleefully stab their malnourished stomach. The impulses came without any warning, and they didn't follow any kind of pattern. Whenever I came to my senses, the thoughts would always be there. And just as I was about to act on them, I'd suddenly remember my own name. When I did, I'd run away as fast as I could, tears welling up in my eyes, covering both my face and the scream threatening to spill from my throat with my hands. I was healthy, my memories were vivid, I didn't despise anyone, and yet, whenever I was confronted with something I had the power to destroy, I couldn't resist wanting to give it a try. Whenever that urge struck me, my face always twisted into a grin. The world outside was terrifying. People were terrifying. I was terrifying. This ever-increasing glee was frightening. But I couldn't confide in anyone, not about something like this. With each passing day, I grew more and more reclusive. I remained level-headed until the end. Could I have developed a split personality? Could someone else's soul have taken up residence in my body? I didn't believe in unscientific things like that. I came to a conclusion. I decided that these impulses of mine were just the same fleeting destructive impulses that everyone feels occasionally. Like how you might lash out at your father when he comes to wake you up after you've stayed up late the night before, or how you'd get irritated if you were walking down the street after it had just rained and a car drove through a puddle and splashed water on you. My impulses were just those tiny split-second flare-ups of anger taking shape in my heart and controlling me. I can't speak for anyone else, but it seemed like I was the sort of person who couldn't oppose my own heart. The way things were headed, I was sure that I would do something that couldn't be undone. The only option left was to shut myself in my room. I had no choice but to spend my days without seeing anyone, without doing anything. If I did that, there'd be nobody for me to get angry at. There'd be nothing for me to resent. Except, that proved to be a mistake. I should have had more faith in God. I should have sought counsel with a priest, rather than hiding in fear from my own nature. During the time I spent locked away in the cage that was my room, my heart was slowly ground down until finally it hit a tipping point. Okay, that's alarming. On that day, I had been completely replaced. Then I felt a prickle of thirst, understandable, really. I slowly dragged my weakened body out of my room for the first time in over a month. My parents, who had been relaxing in the living room, rushed over to me. My father spoke to me with care and worry in his voice, while my mother just smiled at me with tears in her eyes. I killed them both. It was almost disappointingly easy. Feeble as I was, I sank my teeth into my parents' necks and hungrily gulped down their blood. After sucking up 2 lives worth of blood, I stood up.
素晴らしい。この肉体は過去最高の才能だ。
Who could this be? It was my voice, but one I'd never heard before. I guess I should change the voice now. With their crimson blood still clinging to the corners of its mouth like lipstick, the body that had once been mine embraced itself. Just how lucky can one get? Ordinarily, I decide on which vessel I be reborn into in advance based on 2 criteria. Firstly, they should be in a local position of power. Secondly, they should be from a family that possesses special talents. The first condition is the truly essential one, while the second is nothing more than a bonus. My first task is always to seek out a lineage that meets that condition, and establish them as a transfer destination. Unfortunately, my previous incarnation was destroyed by the princess before I could make my final decision. As a result, I was forced to conduct a hasty and incomplete reincarnation, relying solely on astrology. That was how I ended up with this body, the child of a middle-class family of unremarkable social standing. With this starting hand, it had been difficult to take control of the town as a human, and in the fact that I only had a few years before the princess found me, and it seemed nearly impossible. But I did not lose heart. On the contrary, I felt a flash of delight. When weighing whether to opt for lineage or talent, I had always chosen lineage. As a result, I had never come across a truly outstanding body. But this time was different. The strength of this body's magic circuits and the amount of magical energy it was capable of producing were head and shoulders above those of an ordinary mage. Even mages at the top of their field would look like rusted-out clunkers when compared to this body. I sneered at how materialistic my previous selves had been. I had my priorities completely backwards. power and influence can be obtained with time, but a truly outstanding body, a natural-born gem, is a miracle only the Lord can produce. After reincarnating blank times, I had finally hit upon the truth. After I'd awoken, I surreptitiously transformed this town into a necropolis, as naturally as water slowly carves a path through the earth. In contrast to the haphazard methods I'd employed before, my new self did it very gently, careful never to spill too much blood at once. Carefully, I took control of the town over the course of a single night, without letting a single human escape, but while still avoiding any unnecessary killing, I painstakingly constructed a castle of the highest caliber. First, in one smooth motion, I spread an even layer of the cream of despair all over the pure white canvas of the cake. Then little by little, with a mocking smile plastered across my face, I gaudily embellished it with jams, jellies, and meat. It felt like a waste of time and effort to me, but so be it. The reincarnated consciousness that constitutes me cannot exist on its own. I am nothing more than knowledge and a directive. My personality is reconstituted with each generation, modeled by the character and values nurtured in the body of the host. Even though I become the owner of the body, its thought patterns and critical abilities do not change entirely. Which is to say, though my body may have belonged to the reincarnated me, my consciousness was still mine. I was still fully aware, and could remember everything I did. As I slept, I was forced to bear witness to the nightmare my own self had perpetrated. That's why I could remember it. I could remember the sensation of biting into my parents' necks. I could remember how, day after day, one by one, I would defile the souls of the townspeople who had been kind to me, slowly dissolving them from the feet up. I did all this in only a week. I put the townsfolk's lives in the palm of my hand, and began toying with them simply for the sake of my own amusement. I wished I could have just gone mad and left everything to me. But if I did that, I would probably only go to commit even more grievous sins. So I kept on going. I had to stay sane. I had to go on living, so that I could reign in my actions. I have a creeping suspicion as to who this story is referring to, especially with the new news that we received early on in this chapter. And if that's the case, that's very interesting, and I'm very happy that it did not get it spoiled to me, even with the knowledge I have of Melty Blood. There wasn't much time left until the collapse. Not the collapse of the town, but of something much greater. The realization of the projects the me inside of me had spent so much time building up. To that end, I had persisted in eternity. To that end, I had gathered the blood of many humans. To that end, they now gathered, having turned many more towns into the same kind of necropolis mine had become. It wasn't long before my consciousness would burn out. Still cursed, I would vanish before I could bear witness to the end of the world that would occur on that night. And yet, it could be said that salvation did arrive, for that nightmare came to an abrupt end. Oh, hi! The woman in white arrived alongside the Crimson Moon. I didn't recognize her, but I understood who she was. The sixth ritual had begun. Having obtained the body that had once been mine, I thought that they'd finally be able to make the woman in white theirs, and then... the unspeakable incident came to its conclusion. By the time the battle was over, the vampiress in white had killed me. I had already made preparations for their next reincarnation, and was born again, leaving behind nothing but my corpse. The woman in white left, and my corpse was brought to the Vatican. Oh my god. That story is about Ciel, isn't it? Holy shit. Now we know why Arcueid and Ciel been beefing for the longest. Because they have previous beef. I mean, I guess the pseudo vampire part is like actually the vampire that's talking about the story, and Ciel just happens to be the host of it, but still. Holy shit. Because like, I was thinking like, okay, they mentioned the church, they mentioned God, having faith in God. I mean, Mario literally just blurted out that she's a pseudo vampire, which I for damn sure didn't know. And, you know, we haven't heard much about Ciel's parents. So, did she really have like a vampiric like frenzy and kill both of them by sucking their blood? And she met up with what looks to be not just Arcueid, but Archetype Earth. And they fought and she lost. And now that vampire is in Ciel? Wait, no, because they said like... Yeah, because Archetype Earth defeated her. And then only the corpse was left. And that was taken to the Vatican, so... Did she really die there? Man, I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out later, but holy shit, this is getting deep.